Thank you so much for coming today on a Friday in Berlin. And hope you guys are going to have a good evening and good weekend here. My name is Rafa. I work at ZK Sync. I'm a director of the ZK Sync Association and head of governance and operations there. Today we're going to talk about token rights. Here, I don't know if I would call this a new paradigm, but maybe it's just not well adopted. It's potentially something that some folks have heard about before or actually experienced, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how it works in practice, since I don't know a lot of organizations that are using this in practice. So the ZK Sync governance system launched in September 12th. It's been almost a year, and what we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that we were not just mission aligned and decentralized, but we wanted to solve a couple of really tactical, pragmatic issues that we were running into. In particular, today we're going to be focusing on the standard, what in a lot of on-chain organizations is known as the treasury. In a lot of on-chain organizations, this treasury is kind of like a minted token supply. The latest wave of DAOs, which started probably in 2019, have kind of like a sort of multi-sig connected to some governors in Open Zeppelin, but they come with a couple of issues. Specifically, there's some challenges around treasury management, token custody. There's a question of when you mint tokens, what jurisdiction you are accountable to, what your different tax implications are. There's a lot of manual, burdensome off-chain management, custody providers. I think under the hood, a lot of folks don't understand that the custody providers have really manual execution of the different addresses and how the tokens vest and how they're transferred. And there's a lot of reliance on trusted parties and processes. And we wanted to reimagine the distribution of common assets in on-chain organizations. What this led to was a bit of an internal design challenge. Is there a way that we could think about having an on-chain organization where we actually didn't have a minted treasury? Could there be a system where you could govern rights instead of asset transfers? And what were the ways that we could move towards programmatically enforcing those rights distributions instead of having to manually manage them? So it turns out that actually within the smart contract design space today and within the legal frameworks that exist today, you can actually do this. You can not have a treasury. You can actually distribute what we ended up calling cap minters, and you can actually create a variety of different token mechanics that move the governance system from basically proposals on transfers and trust in steering committees into autonomous and self-enforcing token rights flows that are both auditable and then cancelable and manageable by what we call the token assembly, or other organizations call their DAO and token holders and delegates. So what does no treasury mean? So no treasury means that what we're trying to avoid here is creating pressure to focus on financial engineering that a lot of on-chain organizations rely on. They're constantly asking questions about treasury diversification. You have this kind of like number that everybody is kind of monitoring in real time. You have a lot of uncertain tax liability and restrictions to work with different jurisdictions around the world. And actually, something that's little talked about is that by focusing on token transfers, you very often remove the agency from the token recipient to determine when and how they actually receive tokens. So we wanted to create a system that was based on mint on demand. The way that we created this is looking back, it's actually quite simple. We use something, a middleware contract called the cap minter, which is basically a contract that has a cap, which is provided minting rights off of the initial token. That means that each cap minter has an assigned maximum number of tokens known as a cap, which is allowed to be minted. And governance is not transferring tokens. They're actually assigning minting rights to different cap minters and interconnected contracts. Those that have then the minter role of that cap minter can actually mint tokens from that supply whenever they choose to, up to the specific cap specified. But taking a step back, what we're looking at here is thinking about governance systems as distributors of rights, not individual assets or actions. This is really important because when you think about the token, you can have burn rights, you can have minting rights, but it's not just the token. It also has to do with on-chain enforceable rights with regards to any entity or any participant of the on-chain organization. The token mechanics then are the series of smart contracts that enable rights-based management of those tokens. Traditionally, when we transfer tokens, for example, into a vesting contract, these are atomized tokens. These token balances already exist. But when you're talking about supply of tokens or minting rights, you're actually thinking about distribution of rights management and delegating that rights management down to the recipient of the specific token. This is not necessarily new. There's some teams that have been working on this for a very long time. HATS protocol, there's different types of token gating. There's distribution like DRIPS, Superfluid, Hedgie. Metalex is working at the intersection between legal rights and on-chain contracts. But what we want to do here is try to think about this broad system, which is around rights control and distribution. So how does this actually work in practice? Token mechanics allow you to create daisy chain modularity. So for example, you can have a cap minter, and then you can have eligibility modifiers that allow a specific group of entities or contracts or agents to be able to have minting rights on those specific cap minters. But you can also start creating chained controls. For example, you can have a global rate limiter. So it means that your population of people that have minting rights actually can only mint a specific amount of tokens over a period of time with a specific rate that controls your cell pressure supply across your entire ecosystem. More interesting than that, you can also start creating hooks. You can do pre-mint and post-mint contract execution. In this example right here, what we're actually seeing is that a group of individual agents or entities or smart contracts can actually call mint, and upon that mint, you can have a trigger modifier that actually creates a stream for the specific minting recipient. This is quite cool because you can start thinking now about a modular system with regards to rights management. You can have rate limits. You can have delay modifiers. For example, someone can request a mint or request an action on a specific right on a contract, and having a delay between the proposed execution and having a veto council that oversees it. You can have the eligibility mod that we mentioned before, and also the different triggers. You're creating an ecosystem of rights execution, not necessarily flows of specific atomized assets. Taking a step back, so why do we want to do this? So if this is possible in practice, why would we go through the trouble of thinking about rights management instead of just creating a multi-sig or a general DAO treasury? Well, without the mechanic, the priority of the ecosystem becomes treasury management and token custody risk management. You also have a significant lack of on-chain enforcement and automation because you're relying on councils to actually take specific actions on multi-sigs. And you're relying on trusted third parties and processes which may or may not be enforceable via legal contracts. And when you're using a token mechanic, you can fully remove intermediary custody management. This means that it opens up your ability to work from an on-chain perspective with jurisdictions around the world. It also programmatically enforces specific processes or legal contracts that you have, facilitating on-chain accountability, and reduces the burden of multisigs. A lot of people are not aware, but on-chain organizations spend a lot of money paying people to be multisig signers. And they pay a lot of money because not only do they have a lot of control and asset risk, but they also have to coordinate in quite complex ways to be able to execute those specific transfers. When we think about the system as a whole, what we're seeing is a transition. We're trying to move from just off-chain processes and rights management, which is legal contracts, and pure asset management, for example, streams investing, into on-chain processes that manage rights and of tokens and the broader contract ecosystem of a specific protocol. This means that then you can think about how can we really look at mechanics instead of multisigs, looking at automation, autonomy, managing rights, and building product instead of building processes. If you're interested in more information, we do have Minter Mod standards. This is all open source. You can take a look at key benefits of cap minters and the governance docs of ZK Sync. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to find me, and really appreciate the work. This has been about 2 years in process, and we're still working towards more seamless execution of on-chain organizations. Thank you.